So this one's a little harder for me over the years personally. It's more of, I used the reference the other day when I was speaking on it, juggling, because, you got your stuff, and usually you have your parents' stuff, whether it be drama, trauma, and stress, bullshit, and then you find someone that you want to spend your life with, and they got their stuff and their parents' stuff, and then you have children, with that person, and maybe even before that person, or after that person, and you got all of their stuff that, so you get the idea. But if you're like most people, you're probably experienced at least, feelings of what you call shame or guilt, at some point in your life. It's not a pleasant experience, and you might even think they're basically the same thing, and you wouldn't be alone. The same thing goes, it's a common misconception. In everyday conversation, it might be okay to use, guilt or shame interchangeably, but understanding, the difference matters too. I'd say it's a difference in like focus and function. One helps you move forward, and the other keeps you stuck. When it comes, to guilt and shame, these details matter. Guilt is generally defined as the painful, uncomfortable feeling you get when you realize that you've done something wrong, or hurt someone. You acknowledge that your actions have been hurtful, and there is a sense of remorse. Guilt is often accompanied by like a desire to undo or lessen the accountability and responsibility. While it can feel like shame, and you might feel ashamed of your actions, guilt is related to how your actions affect others. Acknowledging guilt can help you be aware and move you forward. When left unresolved, guilt can give weight to shame. Now, shame, on the other hand, is an inwardly focused emotion. It's an intense, self-conscious emotion that arises from negative beliefs and perceptions of yourself. It comes from feeling like inadequate, or having the perception of not living up, to your standards or those of society. Shame can arise even when you haven't done anything inappropriate. These negative beliefs can make you doubt yourself and your self-worth, or feel like you're a bad person. Shame is often shrouded in secrecy. After all, we want, social acceptance, and don't want people to see our, shortcomings, whether they are real or, imagined. So when it comes to shame versus guilt, there are distinct differences. Guilt arises from actions. Shame arises out of negative beliefs and perceptions of self. Guilt implies that you are a good person who made a mistake. It's more about like morals and correcting behavior. Shame makes you see yourself as the problem and not a behavior. It is more of a judgment of self-worth. Guilt gives way to self-reflection. Shame triggers self-criticism and doubt. Guilt can be healthy when you recognize a mistake and grow from that behavior. Shame is a destructive emotion that left unresolved, can erode, your sense of self-esteem and self-worth. We all struggle with guilt, versus shame. But it might surprise you to know that people don't all experience guilt and shame in the same ways. Research shows, that individuals differences already, play a key role. But some people are more guilt prone, they're able to see their actions and separate themselves. I made a mistake, where others tend to be more prone to shame. They perceive actions, as a negative reflection of themselves. And, I'm a bad person to do that. One might ask, and answer, might actually, where it comes from is like living in your past, because, shame is rooted in our insecurities, and we all have them. When something triggers or pokes that painful spot, you can become overly focused on that, perceived mistake or flaw, and the feelings of shame rise. You can become so focused on the negatives that you lose sight of all your strengths and positive qualities. For some people, their shame is specific to certain insecurities. It is uncomfortable and unpleasant. But it is normal and generally, related to some mistake, real, imagined. It tends to subside over time. It's similar, to guilt. In fact, guilt has sometimes been referred to as, healthy shame, they call it. Others struggle with more like pervasive and intense feelings of shame that are often accompanied by like self-doubt and feelings of worthlessness or like inadequacy. This is toxic shame, actually. It's particularly damaging and is thought to have its roots, in early childhood development. Shaming is sometimes used to correct behavior. It isn't meant to be, hurtful, but those messages can cut deep. Adverse childhood experiences can influence the predisposition to guilt or shame. Experiences like witnessing or experiencing abuse, neglect or violence, emotionally absent parents, or your caregivers, mental health, issues, bullying, just to name a few, can foster actually feelings of being insecure, unlovable or like undeserving, or, forming the foundation of shame. Toxic shame can result from traumatic adult experiences too, for example, like combat, or, causing some kind of serious accident occurs, triggers feelings of intense shame. Abusive relationships often involve shaming or behaviors like gaslighting, guilt tripping, or harsh criticism. There's, tactics that degrade self-worth and confidence, create self-doubt and set you up for feeling shame. Toxic shame can wreak havoc on your physical, your personal life, your relationships. Shame can cause significant damage to your mental health in general. Shame is associated with feelings of low self-esteem, and negative beliefs about oneself. These feelings are also associated with many health or mental health issues, I would say. People who deal with shame experience higher rates of anger, trauma, anxiety, depression, as well as PTSD. Eating disorders too is common. When something causes, distress, your goal is to alleviate the distress. People dealing with shame often engage in high risk behaviors, such as like substance abuse, disordered eating, or like self-harm, in an effort to like reduce the anxiety of their emotional pain. Unfortunately, the relief is temporary, though, and the shame that results from that behavior only serves to perpetuate, I would say, the cycle. We instinctively avoid what hurts us, like avoiding the sharp edge of a knife, because it will cut you. The same happens with shame. With shame, there is like a fear of being judged, criticized, rejected. After all, the roots of shame often involve, past hurtful experiences that leave us feeling vulnerable. Intense shame causes us to retreat inward, this emotional withdrawal, as an attempt to soothe, those wounds and protect ourselves from further injury. Feelings of not being worthy or good enough can make it hard to let yourself trust and be, emotionally vulnerable with others. Partners may tell you that they are, aloof or emotional, or remain distant. Communication can break down. You may find yourself in a relationship with partners who are unkind to you or expect you to put, their needs above yours, fearing rejection or criticism. Early experiences have a strong influence on our adult relationships. So you may notice that some patterns in your relationships are even repeating. But, the common question is, can you overcome shame? And yes, the answer is. No matter how intense your shame is, you can overcome shame and learn to value yourself. Begin by building emotional intelligence. It's not always easy to recognize exactly what, we're feeling. But we sometimes just impulsively react to a feeling, only to regret it later. Emotionally intelligent people are really good at noticing and identifying their emotions, thereby being able to respond rather than just, reacting. By the way, emotional intelligence has zero to do, by the way, with intelligence. Emotional intelligence helps you manage your emotions by letting your brain and not your feelings, drive the response. A simple example of this is the old saying, think with your head, not your heart. In other words, let your brain and not your emotions guide your decisions. And guess what? It's a skill you can learn. Shame has convinced you that you are worthy of compassion. Self-compassion helps you to be kinder, and develop empathy. Self-compassion lets you prioritize your own needs instead of always putting others first. Constantly caring for others, while neglecting your own needs, is a heavy burden. It can result in a phenomenon known as, compassion fatigue, I call it, and feelings of apathy, isolation, exhaustion. Shame sneaks into your thoughts when you least expect it. Mindfulness is a powerful way to gently, move your focus to the present, and out of destructive thinking patterns that fuel shame. Mindfulness strategies like breath work, or focusing on your senses can help you focus on the positives and bring your full attention, to whatever you're doing. The key to dealing with shame is building, resilience. You can't change your past experiences, and you can't avoid shame completely, but you can build skills, to move through it. While talking to friends and doing self-help can begin the process. Shame is a complex emotion, and its roots, they run deep. Types of therapy and meditation can help you understand your feelings and work, through the root causes of your shame, while also learning healthy ways of coping. In closing, healing starts with you. Living with shame is not inevitable, and healing is more than possible. You can become confident and secure, learn to manage your emotions, and ask for, what you need without apologizing for it, right? All right, guys, I hope this helped. Have a great day, okay? Bye.